I'm going to call order. It is now 6:06. Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, do the gas station, do the liquor store first.
All right, attendance, Wayne Lippy, chair is present, Ricky Cool, here, Neil Mascola, here, Eileen Bronco,
Here.
Tom Kiernan,
Here.
and Attila Morales. Here, so we do have a quorum. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna jump ahead for 1 minute to new business to item 4A. And this is basically, what we're gonna be doing is looking at a site plan approval for the location of a liquor store at the property located at 42 Prospect Street. Applicant is Naugatuck Wine and Spirits. Property we're talking about is the gas station with the old Vinny's Pizza. And you said we have somebody here now?
Yes, Preet, if you want to come up, or whoever is here from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
How we doing?
Great, are you?
Just state your name and address for the record.
Preet Singh from Borough of Naugatuck, 4 Rebel Lane.
And just explain what you're planning on doing.
So what we have planned is a gas station convenience store with a divided liquor store to the right.
This, if you remember, back about 2 years ago, when somebody else was actually looking at this site, we had actually approved it once before with the liquor store in it. That buyer fell by the wayside. They've gone ahead and started. The property is still there. There is still space for it, but we did approve it once before. We have any questions for this gentleman at all right now? You do have a map for this as well, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a convenience store
Gas
and it's
station.
separate.
Yeah,
Totally
there's actually
separate.
three
Liquor store
storefronts.
with separate owners.
There's for the use, yeah.
Yes.
There's separate store, or there's 3 separate entrances. They don't have to all connect. So if you look at the print, it's the far
Right.
left, or far, I'm sorry, far right.
Far right, looking at.
So it's separated from the rest.
Which is the way it was when they were big.
Yeah.
Oh, so that- oh.
Sorry, did you see there's 3 stores? 2 stores, but there's 3 doors. So 2 of them are gonna be for the convenience store, and then 1 is completely separate for the liquor store.
Okay, this is the gas station on the corner
Yeah.
of, so that's all approved, but because this is a liquor store, it has to come site plan
Right.
approval, any liquor store to our, even if it was already approved previous location and the use.
Okay, so the prior uses, were the prior uses for that piece approved in a different way? Was there a different use for this entire piece? Was it just a deli at one point?
No, this was just the gas station.
Gas station convenience store.
Right, and there was no liquor store attached in the initial approval, correct?
This is brand new construction, it's not even completed yet.
No, I understand, but I'm just trying to get the history of the uses that the commission approved, so they can understand
Okay, yeah.
what it is approved now for, and what this is.
Correct.
This is a
It was approved for a convenience store, but not.
deli,
for
gas
a-
station, and now
A liquor
they're
store.
adding a liquor store on this part of it.
So it's kind of like big liquors, when big liquors were not New Haven Road, and we had to approve their site plan because they were a liquor store.
Just want to make sure I understood.
No, that's
You
fine.
understood the history, so did I. So.
Like I said, I do remember there was one gentleman who was considering a liquor store. That's when Tavia's first closed and that permit was open. He went ahead and tried to get that permit, and we did approve it back then. This was like 2 years ago. Then the deal fell through. He decided not to do it. Then we went ahead and approved this one as a gas station and convenience store, but the other storefront is still there.
And parking will not be a problem?
No,
Congestion with,
It still meets the minimum requirements.
What do you do, share the dumpsters? Share the dumpster?
that is in the plans, yes.
How many parking spots in total?
On the left-hand side. No. The report says parking.
And we don't need a public hearing.
No, it's just site plan modification.
Because it's site plan.
There's a total of 16. There was a variance that was granted years ago. There's a total of 15 spaces. That was prior to us.
So that variance is also granted when it's the gas station, correct?
It was granted when it was a retail store.
And there's no difference,
There's
in
no
regs
difference.
for retail versus a on-site premises to sell liquor, correct?
No,
Correct, right, so it really didn't,
It's still a retail store.
the use is considered the same in your regulations for parking purposes.
It's a different name, different product that they're selling, still retail.
Still
It's just
falls
a-
under retail store.
Right, but our regs do require that.
Because it's a liquor
Because
store.
it's-
No, it requires it, just like we've done.
If anything else was going in there other than a
You wouldn't
liquor
even know
store,
about it.
he wouldn't even be here.
For instance, a smoke shop.
I guess I'm just trying to understand. So the public hearing was for this piece initially without maybe what would go in the building.
It was all commercial.
It was all commercial retail
It
stores.
was all commercial retail. I mean, if that remained as all of the convenience store, well, like you said, a smoke shop went in place of it, a clothing store for that matter, anything. If I decided to put my sign shop in there, they wouldn't even be here. The fact that it's a liquor store is the only reason they had to come before us.
And you know, one of the, when you're looking at your overall regulations, to look at them as a whole, something you might want to consider is, you know, don't forget that's a vestige of times going past where alcohol is.
Well, again, it's also one of the only things that has a call out where it has to be 500 feet from another
Yeah.
liquor store.
So that's a whole, yeah, and that's another,
Which it is.
that's something else you,
700.
that's something else you might want to look at, but the reason it's called, they have to be here is because it's alcohol. At some point, you might want to think about whether that's truly necessary today. It might be, you might think it is, but that's something that should go on your list.
I mean, it usually doesn't really, very seldom is there a change. I mean, we have, I think, 11 or 12 permits in town and that's it. So we very seldom do we see a permit actually come open again. But in this case, it's just moving one that's already existing.
I'm saying the reason that just the vestige of some old.
Well, I mean, that's why all those restrictions are in place. It's because of the temperance and signs and all that, you know, I mean, we're sort of growing out of that, and there's some vestiges of that past in our regulations, but we want to keep it, which is okay, but it's something you guys have to think about as you're looking to upgrade or update your regulations.
Right,
Place
things
them
change.
into the 21st century.
Things change.
Worth considering. I mean, alcohol is probably not, it may be viewed the way it used to be, but I think there's more things on the horizon. More current, let's say, more current items on the horizon.
Yeah, the main other requirement that we have is the SB 500 feet from another liquor store. The closest other liquor store is down on Main Street in Speeds Liquor. This is actually 700 feet away. It's something we looked at a couple of years ago, and the other gentleman was looking at going in there.
Yeah, I guess my two things for me was just congestion with multiple places in that area, because that's a congested area. And secondly, that when people came out for a public hearing on this whole thing, if they thought there was a liquor store going in there or not, I mean, they if they didn't think that there was one in there, they didn't get to talk about it.
But our regulations consider it retail is retail regardless of what it's selling. So,
And they don't.
Yeah, 'cause many
so
times you
again,
don't know
that's
what's
something
going in.
we can't look at. You know, in the future, you know, maybe we should look at those rights if we're, you know, we come across this again.
It's hard to, once it's an approved use and your regulation, it's really hard to say, okay, it has to be a judo karate school. You can't, you know.
Right.
It's hard to do that, but it's something that's worth thinking about. Hard to enforce that.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan and location for a liquor store for the property located at 42 Prospect Street, applicant Naugatuck Wine and Spirits. I have a first, do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're now with a time of 6:18. We're going to open up the public hearing, which is a requested one-year extension until August 18th, 2022 for the approved special permit and site plan for a restaurant for the property located at 233 Rubber Avenue. Applicant is Professional Quality Services LLC. Just to remind everybody so they understand, this is the old VFW property. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you just have to give your name.
Yeah, my name is Carlos Aguirre from 63 Wright Avenue, which is the 233 Robert Avenue. We're looking for,
This is basically a piece of property that he's purchased recently that was already, this special permit and site plan was already approved. Because of the fact that he recently purchased it, basically he's looking for a one-year extension to get this done.
Yeah, so our requirements, again, you have 5 years for a site plan, 2 years for a special permit. We have gone outside of the 2 years for the special permit afterwards. But he did just buy the building. It was previously approved. I think I sent out the print to you all. And it was previously approved for a proposed restaurant in the middle area there. They just recently purchased the building. They have goals in the future of doing some other things that I explained to them. They're gonna have to come back before us. But right now, they're looking to just extend as the current thing, because they want to potentially keep the restaurant in the middle like it is. And once that gets done, then they want to do some other things there, but they'll have to come back before us for that. That'll be a modification.
Any questions? No, sir. Then at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the requested one-year extension to August 2022 for a special permit and site plan for a restaurant property located 233 Rubber Avenue. Applicant Professional Quality Services LLC. I have a first, I have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's good luck, sir.
What type of food are we talking?
South American, Colombian, mostly.
Okay. Nice. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll do it. Yeah, thanks. Okay, next is, this is a public hearing that we are going to open at 6:20. This is for a requested extension to August 2023 for a special permit for PDD number 11 for property located at 25 Jenny Lynn Court. Applicant Foley Mills Develop LLC. Now, you said you had a letter from him.
Do you have the letter?
Give me one.
Pass it up, everyone. I gave you the snack.
Is this in? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just passing. So Jimmy is taking his daughter to college tonight, so he wasn't able to be here. I'm gonna wait till this gets out there, and just read it in. Take one and pass it on. So Jimmy sent this email into us this afternoon. To whom it may concern, I apologize that I will not be attending tonight's meeting regarding PDD number 11. We have been working on the project for several years now. We have one building constructed and rented to some fine small businesses. We are planning to start the next building this fall. Progress is moving forward slower than anticipated, but nevertheless, we are moving in the right direction. It'll be a great tax base and increase to the borough. I hope that we get extended for 2 years at this time. Thank you again in advance for your warning. So PDD 11 represented 20 and 25 gentlemen. He recently sold one half, which was the quarry area.
It's
All right,
called future development.
future development. So that has now been sold off to somebody else, but it is part of PDD 11, still part of his project ultimately. So he has those business condos that he's been building, that he tells you he's got one built, he's gonna work on the other one. So he's asking us for 2 years instead of just one. So he's been coming back to us constantly every year. He actually came back to us in May of this year. And then we said, well, we're gonna be good for a couple months, then we gotta come back.
Then you have to come back.
Keep him on. So that's where that's what he's asking.
When did it start? How many extensions has he had?
He started 2009 or so.
There's been a lot of extensions.
Yeah.
But it's been as he progresses.
And I'm not sure, what's the new rules now, with the COVID and moving forward, you know how they changed this last.
They're going out like 15 years.
Yeah, it's more, yeah, it's almost, it's like 14 to 15 now.
Yeah.
So he's within the timeframes. Up to the commission has discretion as to how much of the extension he wants to give them, like is to sort of keep an eye on someone who's working on their permits to ensure that the project is built.
Yeah, I mean, he is moving forward. He has been doing stuff. He is renting stuff. I rented place out. He did finish the one in the building in the front, which I think was his first goal. Now he's got one building up and he's working on a second one over there. He was gonna do even more on the other side, but it looks like now that he's sold that off, that will actively be going on by Lake Industries to finish the quarry and whatever they're there, but they're gonna actually change up that.
So this building would be the last as far as all this, as far as with.
If I remember correct, it's
What
actually
Jimmy knows.
3 buildings. There is one here, there's one like this, and then one like this kind of shaped up as you. And they're just basically giant metal buildings. That are garages, with like
You've talked-
landscapers.
So you've talked to him, unfortunately, we can't question him right now. Is 2 years gonna give him enough time to finish both of these buildings?
He didn't say. He didn't say. I don't know how long it took for the first building.
The
building
first building was
started-
probably about 2 years to get everything done by
That
the
was
time.
with the
he did that.
electrical. and-
Yeah.
That was in the middle of COVID, of course,
Yeah.
we're back in the middle of COVID. Yeah.
Right, I mean. I really want to say it probably took them 8 years.
Yeah.
To get the first.
But
building
that
done.
was also
But that
working on
was
the
all-
front building as
Right.
well.
And when the market dropped, it was in the middle of the market dropped, and so he didn't do the back, but he got the front. And that's all rented except for the upstairs.
So there's gonna be an active quarry?
It always
because these
was.
buildings-
has
It
Right,
has, but before the buildings, it was all
Yeah, but
quarry.
they're
Right.
not, they're industrial condos, they're landscapers, that type of stuff. So it's not anything that's going to disrupt the condos on this thing. They're just moving forward with what he had.
So I guess what he's asking is instead of giving him 1 year like we've been giving him every year, at least since I've been here in 2017, to just giving him 2 years, not this way. In wetlands, they do give 2 years, right, at times, most of the times. They've given him 2 years on his wetland permit. and extensions.
So that's not a problem for us to go 2 years instead of.
I mean, you could, I think you have the discretion to do that, but, I mean, traditionally you've given one for the reason I
I
stated.
mean, what's the difference if we gave him one and he comes back a year from now and asks for it again?
I would prefer 1 year, just so that we can have an eye on what's happening. It's been a long time.
I agree. I mean, I have no problem extending it. I mean, he's been a definite asset to the town as far as continuing. I don't see any reason they offer 2. All he has to do is come back a year from now, and request it again. All right?
I'm only basing on what he asked.
Mhm. All right, then I would entertain a motion to, I would entertain a motion to approve the requested one-year extension. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, ask the public.
Yeah, is there any comments from the public at this point? Yeah, there are any comments from the public? If not, I'm gonna close this hearing at 6:27. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve a request for a one-year extension to the August 2022 to PDD number 11 for the property located at 20 and 25 Gentleman Court, applicant Fulton Mills Development LLC. First, do I have a second? Second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna go on to HDF.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want
I
to do
know-
the minutes?
Huh?
Do you wanna do-
We need to, we're just gonna wait to the end. We'll keep reminding me, we'll move at the end. All right, at this point, I'm gonna reopen this hearing at 6:28. This is for a special permit application for a proposed gas station and store for the property located at 1198-1202-1204 New Haven Road. Applicant HCM Petroleum Corporation. And you had a letter or so that you wanted to read in?
Yeah, I do have, Wayne Ciroli is on vacation, I will be here.
Do you have one from the
I
public?
have nothing.
Oh, okay.
If you'd like, I could read.
Yeah, if you would read Wayne's in this place at this point, just so everybody can hear it.
So you were provided with this, was the applicant's there to read here, but this is the August 5th to Wayne Licky, Chairperson Zoning Commission and Commissioners, from Wayne Ciroli, Borough Engineer, CC Kevin Soley. Final zoning review comments for engineering report, HCM Petroleum Corp. 1198-1202-1204 New Haven Road, retail gas station building. Review with the proposed site plan entitled proposed development 1198-1202-1204 New Haven Road, Naugatuck, Connecticut. Prepared for HCM per scale 1 to 20, dated 4/14/2021, revised to 7/19/21 by Solely Engineering, Monroe, Connecticut. Final zoning review comments in regards to the verified notice of intervention dated May 18, 2021, items numbered 1 through 9. The following comments are noted. The current plans revised to 7/19/21 were delivered to the Naugatuck Land Use Office on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. So the engineering has addressed the outstanding comments and Mr. Trinka's letter from July 5th, 2021. Comments regarding the numbered items set forth in the verified notice of intervention. Item number 1 refers to the application filed with the Borough of Naugatuck Zoning Commission, no comment. Item number 2 refers to proposed development for construction of retail building and gas station, no comment. Item number 3 states that the application fails to comply with the Connecticut 2004 Storm Water Quality Manual and the Connecticut 2002 guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. The applicant's engineer has been proactive in addressing concerns voiced by the intervener's engineer through the application process. In my opinion, the design plans comply with both the stormwater quality manual and the guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. Item number 4 states that the application involves conduct which will cause or is likely to cause unreasonable impairment, pollution, or destruction of natural resources. In my opinion, this application is similar to other applications in the borough in which the projects have been built, are in operation, and which have not caused the stated impairment. I do not believe that it is likely that the stated impairment will occur. Item number 4 states that hydrocarbons and metals and solid and particulate form will be discharged to the soil and groundwater of the site. In my opinion, the amount of pollutants that may be discharged will not be substantially different than what is discharged from the roadways and parking lots everywhere else. This site will also have a treatment system in place to meet the required stormwater standards unlike many other areas. Item number 6 states that the proposed stormwater management system will function as a direct injection well into the soil for pollutants. This statement mentions dry wells, which were a part of a previous application. In my opinion, the designed pre-treatment measures specified on the plans meets requirements, and this statement is untrue and alarmist. Item number 7, modifications have been made to the design plans to address concerns as stated. Item number 8, all required information has been provided in the design plans and reports to comply with SESC guidelines. Item number 9 states that existing and future information will be reasonably likely to show the existence of other causes of unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of wetlands, watercourses, groundwater, and other natural resources. In my opinion, this statement is extremely alarmist and unfounded. It paints this application with a broad brush of suspicion that I find unreasonable. Plans for this site have been well designed, and the design engineer has been responsive to comments from the opposing engineer. As a result, I believe that the opposing engineer functioned to increase the quality of the engineering design of this set of plans. After review of the latest plan submission, I am satisfied that the plans are complete and that Sony Engineering has responded to all outstanding comments. Respectfully, Wayne Zaroli, Borough Engineer.
Are there any comments from the public right now?
Mr. Chairman, are you, at the end of the last hearing, I want to go back through everything because, you know, what's at the.
Can you speak up?
Sure, Ken Slater, Alan and Sage, representing the Burks and the James family. And, I won't reiterate what you've heard already. I will just summarize. As time goes by, you forget. But my colleague Mark Brantz came in and presented details of what my clients believe were deficiencies in the plans. I indicated at the meeting that I attended last time that your role when you're dealing with countervailing experts is to determine which experts you find more credible. Obviously, you heard from the town engineer tonight, and Mr. Soley believes it complies with the stormwater manual. Our expert believes that it does not, and it's your responsibility to evaluate that. But I think the overarching concern, which I emphasized last time, is the discretion this commission has, and it's very significant discretion. This is a use that's not automatically permitted. It's one in which you have to look at a specific location, give you consideration of a specific location, and a convenience store, as we've outlined, is uniquely poorly located directly across from much of the residential neighbors that I've represented. So I described it in detail. I provided the St. Joseph's case, the Beacon Hill Road intersection traffic. These are all considerations that are part of special permit discretion. And we ask that you use that discretion. You listen to so many people who've appeared before the commission in opposition to this application. Commercial uses can be reasonable on that site, but this particular use is something that you are asked under your regulations to evaluate under the general standards. And we do that in consideration of concerns that were raised in the public hearing. We think you should. We ask that you do deny the special permit application. Thank you, Jeff.
Any other comments from the public? Somebody who's online right now who would like to speak? Anybody, commissioners, fellow commissioners, any questions right now?
Thank you. I'd like to know what security measures that you will have.
Good evening, members of the commission. Director, my name is Kevin Soley. Soley, represent the applicant. Which I guess regard from a security standpoint, the building will be equipped with a security system, there'll likely be cameras, as is kind of standard in this day and age. So it'll be monitored, it'll be manned when they're operating the facility. So I think there'll be adequate measures in place, which is consistent with this type of use, to ensure that there aren't any issues.
security in and out?
We can certainly discuss with the applicant. I'm sure if the commission felt strongly about it, they'd be happy to provide security cameras on the exterior as well as the interior.
Neil, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Just the other thing is sidewalk. I know that we talked about sidewalks before, and even around town, there's, you know, sidewalks that
Rubber
we
Avenue
have.
Design District, correct me if I'm wrong, we required them, because this is prior to me being here. New Haven Road Design District, you did not require sidewalks. did you?
No, we did.
We did?
And then we have choice of that.
Case by case we went.
Yeah.
So we more or less left the discretion up similar to the parking.
Yeah.
And I know for years, planning and zoning, or the plan of development, they wanted sidewalks, and it was put in the plan of development years ago because for walking children, you know, you'd have big areas of no sidewalks. So if the plan was supposed to be that we would start including sidewalks when we approve things. And if we are going to consider mixed use all the way down New Haven Road, where people are gonna live and walk to places, I think that we need to have sidewalks.
And just to that point, we've actually incorporated sidewalks into our plans, and we are providing it across the entire. So we did include it, it is part of our application.
Yeah, I was looking.
It's made our life a lot easier.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. Good.
Okay, Tommy? I have no further questions at this point. So at this point in time, it is now 6:38, and I'm gonna close the public hearing. Now, tonight, and Ned can go a little bit further if he wants to on this. In reference to this property, we have three different things that we have to look at. One is whether or not the intervener has a real true concern in reference to the environmental issues with this project. Two, we're also going to look at the architectural, as we always do, is the architectural review board. And three is whether or not we want to approve or turn down the entire project. These are the three things we're going to look at tonight. Hey, Ned, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you covered it, and you've heard, you have information. I believe you've had enough information from the engineers and your staff engineer to make a determination with regard to the 22A19 consideration, and also the special permit itself. You have heard plan of conservation and development called it to play here with regard to our arterial boardwalk. You also some testimony about what the nature of the paper road is reported to be under the paper road design district. And you have testimony from both sides with regard to runoff drainage, storm erosion control, and so forth. And there is a considerable amount of discretion you have in determining which expert you want to believe or what parts of which expert you wish to use. That rests with you, but there's adequate evidence in the record for the commission to use its discretion and to make findings with regard to this, and also the propriety of the use of land is also something that the commission has adequate information to, on which it may base this.
Thanks, Ned.
But I would do the environment, I suggested in terms
Do
of.
the environmental
Right,
first.
2019 first, then I would do the special permit, because if you don't get past that, you don't have to do the architectural review.
Right. Exactly. All right, so basically, I mean, this is our fifth month. We have heard testimony from Mr. Trinkus as far as on the side of the intervener. We've heard testimony from Mr. Solly, and they've been going back and forth for 4 months. And we've had our final review from our borough engineer, who basically 100% agrees that this is a sound project and it was really going to be no harm to the environment at this point in time. My opinion, I would be ready to put it to the vote unless anybody has any questions right now. At this point, I would entertain a motion that after reviewing all documents and testimony, including engineering reports and reviews in regards to the project located at 1198-1202-1204 New Hayden Road, in accordance with the Connecticut State Statute 22A-19, that the commission finds that the proposed development does not cause unreasonable pollution and or environmental harm.
So moved.
First, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now we have two other areas are the architectural review, which we are responsible for, as well as the project itself. And so are you going to go over as far as the renderings on the building and so forth?
I certainly can't. For the commission. So, we've included in our package the information submitted, elevations which show the, you show the council. Oh, sure. Yeah, so.
You're suggesting that the site plan, the special permit be introduced first before the architectural comes through? Or we do
No,
that?
not that, what I'm suggesting is they vote on it first. Not that they vote on it.
So we believe that the architect has done a good job of kind of designing a building with character. There's a number of elements that are built into the front and side elevations of facades to create some, so we don't have any blank walls. We've created some changes in textures and materials to kind of create a nice welcoming environment. There's ephes up towards the top with large spandrel windows with some basically block stone around the base up to the watermark. And then if you look at just some of the other side elevations, we do have some hardy plank siding in between some of the vertical columns with block, which we think is going to create a really nice aesthetic for the building itself. And that kind of carries around both both sides and the rear elevation as well. We've also incorporated in our landscape plan some pretty substantial landscaping around the perimeter of the building, which we think is going to provide additional breakup of some of those facade elements. So we believe that they built in a lot of nice architectural features which will really fit well into the building, and then even throughout the corridor itself. We've included, and we have up on the board now, just kind of a rendering model of what this would look like. And you can see, I think it actually does constitute and creates a really nice aesthetic along the road with some nice view sheds from traveling in both directions. And it does create a nice enhanced building from an architectural standpoint. And again, just to point out, you have some pretty good and extensive landscaping with planting beds around the building itself, planting along the front. We've complied with all the street tree requirements, things like that. And we do have this considerable portion of the site towards the rear is dedicated for stormwater management and additional green space. So we do believe that we've provided a plan which does provide some really nice architectural elements. Have you any questions of the board?
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this point, then, I would entertain a motion to approve the drawings and renderings for the gas station and store for the property located 1198-1202-1204 New Hayden Road.
You should do the special permit
First, okay.
Well, you're acting as the architectural review board, so that's the role you play first. I mean, you're playing it now because the zoning commission, our regulations are a little different than others. We
normally approve this first.
You can do it either way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you said that.
I know, I prefer it the other way because that way you don't have to. It doesn't. You can do it either, you can do this first.
So to continue, applicant HCM Petroleum Corporation. First, do I have a second?
Second.
Now, the first and the second, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next thing we have to look at now is whether or not we want to approve or turn down the special permit application for a gas station and retail store for the property located at 1198, 1202, 1204 New Haven Road. Applicant HCM Petroleum Corporation. We've heard a lot over the past 4 months. We understand this is the New Haven Road Design District. It is a mixed district. I realize some of the houses were there before. But I think at this point in time, at least my opinion at this point, I think we have enough information to go forward to actually vote on this and decide whether or not this project is going to fit down there. Do you have any questions or concerns?
I would agree with you. We've heard a lot. I've read all of the letters from everybody, and the applicant has changed a lot through the whole process to make it a nicer development for everybody. So
Yeah, there were a lot of questions as far as the number of trees and landscaping that's been corrected and improved. The drive-through is gone. You brought up sidewalks. We got an answer immediately. Sidewalks are really part of it. I think they've done everything to try and fit into this environment.
I would like to condition security in and out,
What's that?
security in and out.
And you said that's something that you would be able to take care of. I mean, we can make that a we can put this in there and make that a stipulation after security.
Yeah.
All right. Then at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the special permit for a gas station and retail store for the property located at 1198, 1202, 1204 New Haven Road. Applicant HCM Petroleum, with the stipulation that the security has been added as discussed. First, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, before you go on, you mean, by security, you mean cameras, not.
Cameras.
Not a-
Well, if you want security guards or whatever you can do, but appropriate security in and out.
So the applicant is aware, we have it on the record that that's what.
Right. I have first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Gentlemen, I thank you all for what you've done and what you've told us and all the work you've done. Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much for all the time and effort and hard work over this entire application. That's been really excellent. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Now, all right, wine time.
Can we, yeah, you want to set?
Yeah, okay. My mistake before, I rushed this a little bit, but at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2021 meeting. I have first, do I have second?
I didn't read them.
I think you're on.
Any discussion? Not all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we?
And I would just like to, I would like to say Michelle does a fantastic job on these minutes. So thank you.
He does. I mean, if you, I know numerous meetings and sat and listened to those recordings, and so have I. And I don't know how you do it, but you do a great job with it.
We're gonna pause it now.
So can we take a recess for a few minutes?
Sure. Yeah, why don't we do that?
Anything else?
6. Oh, okay, you got a lot, thank you. This is for a special permit application for the proposed industrial park for the property located at 400 Elm Street, 12 Spencer Street, applicant the Borough of Naugatuck, represented by Civil One Engineering.
Commission members, my name is Michael Lambert, professional engineer with Civil One, 43 Sherman Hill Road, Woodbury. On behalf of the applicant, the borough, I'm here with the Mayor Hess to present you of our project. So as we talked about projects at 400 Elm Street and 12 Spencer Street. On our plan, it's also on the screen. We've got kind of the New Haven, New York Railroad that kind of runs through our site. We've got the sewage plant and animal control down to our south. Cherry Street, Ward Street's kind of to our west and north. Elm Street is part of our project, and then the Naugatuck River is on the eastern border of our project. So kind of for our site, we've got our main strip where Lanxess buildings are. They've got two of them. There's the vacant parking lot that's got the cell tower that's on the western side of Elm Street. And then there's the strip of land between the railroad and the Naugatuck River. Second slide. So those of you who have been around Naugatuck long enough, this was originally the Uniroyal Chemical Plant Company. They had over 40 different buildings that were on that site. Over time, obviously, those buildings have been decommissioned and demolished. Lanxess is through their process of doing their environmental cleanup of that property. They're close to the end of their process to be able to clean up that site. And then the borough is now looking to purchase that land. So the third slide. So what we have kind of on the top is an aerial view of the property. As you kind of see here, it's more of kind of wooded now. The vegetation is overgrown, and there's just broken up pavement all over the place. On the lower section is what we envision our development to be, where we've got a railroad spur, a container yard that's going to be along the Naugatuck River, 3 buildings throughout the site, and a fuel cell pad kind of near the animal control and sewage plant. So we can at least see the difference between the demolition site and our proposed development. As I was saying, so we've got kind of 3 different building pads that we're looking at. Building A, we're looking at about 322,000 square foot building with some office space. Building B is going to be over 162,000 square feet, and building C is about 65,000 square feet, along with a fuel cell pad that's going to be about 350 feet by 60 feet wide. With this development, as it was kind of 2 lots between the Lanxess building and the vacant parking lot, part of the process of this project is going to be giving Lanxess their own property. So we're going to almost, what we've been kind of calling it is a dumbbell shape. So we've got the 12 Spencer Street building, a new private driveway that's going to get out to 400 Elm Street, which is their research facility, and that's going to be owned and operated by Lanxess themselves. The rest of the space is going to be owned by the borough, where we're going to have our 3 buildings, the fuel cell pad, and kind of realigned roadway from Ward Street to the sewage plant that currently the sewage plant trucks operate through, but we're just realigning to be more in line with the existing railroad. And then on the eastern side of the railroad between the Naugatuck River and the railroad, we're going to install a new railroad spur with a container yard and still maintain an existing access that goes underneath the train tracks. So kind of throughout this entire process, this is kind of the last step of the environmental cleanup of the site, where Lanxess and their operations are going to be able to finish their cleanup, and then the final process of that cleanup is to be able to cap the site so there is no more groundwater infiltration or exfiltration of anything that remains under land. So through that process is either doing a parking lot or a building. So that kind of wraps up my presentation, but I'd be open to any questions you guys have at this time.
What's a fuel cell pad?
Just want to supplement a few comments. Yeah, I'll start with your question.
Would you
So,
identify yourself, sir?
That's a very good point. I'm not used to this. I lost my license as a lawyer, but Pete has here on behalf of the Borough of Naugatuck, the applicant. So the fuel cell is what we call a merchant fuel cell project. We have to get permission from the state to do it, but it is a project that will, in essence, sell the energy to the grid and make a profit. So it's a for-profit venture where the borough would wind up getting, the major benefits from the profit because it will be on borough land. It's not definite yet. It has to be approved by the state. They change their laws every 5-10 minutes, so it's hard to follow it. But as of right now, we have a green light to go with the project, so we want to go ahead with it. But like that site, and like all of the sites that were shown, this is our first choice. Now, this application is really an application for an industrial park with 4 pad sites that hopefully can become, we'll call it the inland port of Naugatuck, but what you see before you. But remember, no matter what's going to happen on any of those sites, we have to come back here for a site plan approval in the final buildings. But in this case, I would call this the grand slam. If we're able to make a deal with a Class 1 railroad, then we would be able to have a intermodal yard container area where we would bring in goods from the north, most likely from Canada. The prime player we're looking at would be the Canadian National Railroad. They're in the midst of large mergers. I'm sure you see about them. They're in the papers all the time, but they're involved in large wars about Canadian National, Canadian Pacific. All the railroads are reorganizing. And when that's complete, hopefully we'll be in a position to make an arrangement with a Class 1 railroad and do the Port of Naugatuck. If we can't, it's going to be an industrial park with 4 industrial users. Now remember, the land is zoned industrial, it's zoned I-1. Naugatuck doesn't have any I-1 land. We want I-1, we need I-1, we want to increase our tax base, but as is noted in the report, the plan of conservation and development singles this exact area out as an area to redevelop and put I-1. So we're doing what the plan of conservation says, what zoning calls for. It's I-1, we want to do I-1. Preferably the inland port of Naugatuck, but if not that, it'll be 4 separate I-1 uses. So my job is to increase the grand list, get jobs, make things better. As council alluded to in his final remark, which was your best remark, this piece is either going to be a parking lot forever, or it's going to be developed into industrial property. So our plan is to do what it's zoned for, to develop it into industrial tax generating property. Now, having said that, given this is a special permit setting, we want it to be done in a way that is as minimally intrusive to the neighbors or anyone else. So when we get to site plans, we're totally open to finding ways to make it better than it used to be. Remember, it used to be the #1 chemical company in the world, 40+ buildings, all gone. That was the beginning of the problems for Naugatuck with our tax base. So this project is designed to bring back our tax base, to bring jobs, and to have, at a minimum, an industrial park, and if everything falls into place, an inland port, which would be better because it would not only bring development to this site, it would bring development to other sites in Naugatuck, other towns, throughout the valley, and be a real major plus for the entire valley and for central Connecticut. Now, I would note that just recently, the state of Connecticut has included this project in their freight rail planning for infrastructure money. And of course, we are doing the same. There's still a lot of question marks about how that money will be allocated by the federal government, but this project is certainly right for that. And we plan to do everything we can to make this a sensational project. I think about it every morning when I get up first thing and try and find ways to make it happen. You know, it took a long time to get this far. You know, this is actually more complicated than zoning from a development standpoint. Because to make it work from a remediation standpoint, we have to have a balanced site. In other words, we're not gonna bring in material, we're not gonna take out material. The arrangement we have with Lanxess is that it's their responsibility to clean the site and to remove anything that can't be capped. So what we're gonna do is develop the land. The ultimate buildings that are created will be the cap plus the parking. So we have to cap the land. So we want it to be capped with buildings on it to generate tax revenue, not to be capped as a exclusive parking lot. So this is the best site in the region for industrial development. That's what it used to be. That's what it was intended to be. And all we're asking for is to do what's permitted and what we're supposed to do in that I-1 zone. So that's the background, and now we'll take any questions.
So this is just for the initial phase, there's no actual building of any kind going on right now, that has to come back to zoning again. Is the ultimate plan here to bring material in not just through the freights, or is the roads going to be used as well?
Well, there are roads that are shown in the plan, so show them the road.
Yeah. So what we have here is that we've got what used to be Elm Street coming down here, and we still have the main access road that's going to come down along the railroad and towards the sewage plant. But all three buildings are going to have access to that roadway for all the trucks. So for like building C, we've got two large parking areas that are going to surround the existing cell tower, and you're going to have access straight up to this road and into the public right of ways. For building A, we've got our access down on this side as well. And then there is also a ingress egress lane out here that will allow trucks to still navigate through this. For building pad B, we do have a driveway down here that will still loop down to our main access point and come along the railroad. Although we do have access points to Cherry Street from this main road, there's two spots from building B. Those are only for emergency employees, residential cars. None of the freight trucks are going to be permitted to go that route. They're going to have to go back through the site and out through Elm Street. And for Lanxess's driveway, Spencer Street kind of comes down. It's going to kind of that tee off to have a drive access to their site, which will also have their driveway connect to our access way for emergency purposes, as well as going to have employee access to building C. You can take a left off of Spencer Street and have T intersection.
And there's no concerns with how to get to Route 8 or anything like that with the turns going that way at all?
So
Yeah,
to get the way to get to Route 8 is to come out Elm Street, take a left on Scott Street, and then go on the bridge. So let me mention that because right now, the traffic route from that site is to come from Elm Street all the way down Cherry Street, Rubber Avenue, back down Elm Street. So we don't want that. for this project or for the existing project. We don't want trucks approaching the downtown area or the new Rubber Avenue area. We want them to go the shorter route, which has the least amount of impact on, in fact, even less impact than what's there now, to come around Scott Street and down Elm Street and in. So it's a very short in and out, which is a much better plan than what's there now.
So and the radiuses of all those will be fine with the way they
You
are
would have
now.
to do some improvements in that area.
But the town's gonna have to just fix some of those corners to make sure things go, okay. And then the only other question I had was, on the fuel cell, is there any, and I know this isn't part of this, this is more for my educational purposes. On that fuel cell, what type of environmental fire risks is that?
Well, the environmental issues are all positive. It reduces our carbon footprint, and I don't have the exact stats, but I can tell you that the much smaller fuel cells that we did at the wastewater treatment plant reduced the energy bill at the treatment plant by in excess of 175,000 a year and reduced our carbon footprint. And that's 2 fuel cells. So this is 3 fuel cells, I'm not sure. I think it's 2 or 3, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is a larger project that would be designed to create either savings or revenue for the borough, or both.
So it's no risk to, as far as, I don't know what makes up the.
So here's what you need 2 things for a fuel cell. You need a gas line, which is there. You need proximity to an electric substation. Now, I'm sure you're aware that right across the street is an electric substation. So this is actually a premier site for a fuel cell, which is why we selected it. And by the way, we still have to go through hoops at the state level to even get the opportunity to do the fuel cell. So it's mostly there for planning purposes to make sure that we can do the fuel cell and have enough room for a tax generating building. If the state won't let us do the fuel cell, then it'll be something else.
Do we have any comments from the public at this point in time?
I was concerned about traffic and also noise for the residents.
Can you please identify yourself first
My name is Charlene Gallant,
and address?
371 Cherry Street.
Okay, go ahead with your question or concern, please.
I was concerned about noise level that's going to be generated in this residential neighborhood. And also, as far as traffic, Scott Street is a very small street. Kind of finding it hard how trucks would fit in there.
So for the traffic purposes for Scott Street, there would have to be some improvements that would have to undergo of kind of widening some.
You think?
Radiuses. We'd have to look at probably eliminating the parking on the side of the streets. So we've got a traffic engineer looking into that as part of our process when we have to go through after our step going through with the commissions. As far as the noise level goes, we can look into adding some arborvitaes or some larger landscape trees that would be able to provide more of a buffer between the residents and the development.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Charlie, I'm gonna mute you. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, this is Philip Gallant, 371 Cherry Street. I have a comment about this lot B. It's going to be directly across from my house. What is going to be there?
It's either going to be, if the inland port of Naugatuck goes through, it will most likely be a warehouse. If it doesn't go through, it will be anything that's allowed in the zone, which is an I-1 zone.
Okay. How about the setback from the road?
So the zoning regulations require us to be, I believe it's 25 feet from the road, but it's 50 feet from a residential zone, which I believe your property is. So, and the building footprint right now is 50 feet from the zone boundary. So there is still about a 40-foot gap between the edge of pavement and our building that we're proposed to show right now.
Okay, you're talking about a warehouse. How tall is this warehouse proposed to be?
I'm not sure what's permitted in the zone, but I believe 1 or 2 stories.
It's probably not higher than
I
40
want-
feet. 40 feet in most cases, that's pretty much what we are.
Is that right there on your?
40 feet?
What is the reg say?
The maximum height of a building or structure in an I-1 zone is 60 feet.
Oh, nice. That's going to be a big eyesore. You know what that's going to do to property values, right? I don't think that needs to be that close
And on
to
property,
Cherry Street.
we believe that property values in the entire town will go up. It's
Yeah, they
probably
have for now.
true that if you live right next to it, you won't share as much in that growth. But this plan is designed to bring jobs, revenue, and that brings a stronger town and better property values overall is the objective. Living right next to it, you have it's a very valid question, and if you live right next to it, you won't share in as much growth and values as others, would be my opinion, but there very well could be an impact to you.
Yeah, there is going to be an impact, especially if there's no buffer here.
We do have about between your properties and this building, you're probably looking at somewhere close to 60 feet, 80 feet to the closest corner. My assumption right now from your yard to the closest corner of the building. That's
Yeah, I could probably spit that far. You're right across the street here. We've got tall trees that's hiding this whole mess that's behind there. And what you're talking about is putting a 60-foot building that's going to be an eyesore.
So we're going to put buildings that will not exceed 60 feet. We don't know exactly what's going to go yet. When we get to that point, there will be a site plan with the exact height on it of the building and the exact use. The buildings that are designed so far, we do have did you submit the drawing?
Yes, I don't have it.
We did submit a rendering of what it may look like. And I'll say this, it looks 1,000 times better than Uniroyal used to look like. And it looks nicer than most industrial buildings, but it is an industrial building. That's what's supposed to go on that property in that zone. So what we're building is what is allowed there, what the town is entitled to build. We want to make it as nice as we can, but it is what it is. It's an industrial building in an industrial zone.
It is what it is, isn't a really good answer. That's like tough luck. Is that what you're saying?
Are there any other comments from the public? Hearing none. Closes hearing at 7:23. Commissioners, you've heard the report as far as taking this piece of property, which is an I-1 property, continue using it for an I-1 property. We talked about buffers, we talked about height. Everything is fitting within our current regulations. So at this point in time, if there's no comments or questions from the commissioners, I would entertain a motion to approve special permit application for the proposed industrial park for the properties located at 400 Elm Street and 12 Spencer Street, applicant the Borough of Naugatuck. First, and a second, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if we want to put on the record, the planning commission did give them a positive referral, and there is no, wetlands report.
Right.
I was like that.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a discussion to revise the livestock and poultry regulations in the Naugatuck zoning regulations. Applicant, the Borough of Naugatuck. Lori, is there anything you have to report or add at this point?
No, last month we gave the commissioners a copy of what we were proposing. We were hoping that you would make some comments or notes on this, if you had any. And then at that point, we could set the public hearing for next month, and I can send it down to Naugatuck Valley Council for their review.
Commissioners, any comments at all? Additions, changes?
It was for the poultry and also bees.
Right, so the way it was written, the way it was presented last week is the way that we are going to present it next week. Next month, we will set a public hearing. That'll be what? That's the only one, right?
That'd be the only one.
All right, so that'll be at 6:05.
6:05, meeting September 15th.
September 15th.
So you can make, you'll make a motion.
I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for 6:05 for September 15th to present the changes to the livestock regulations. I have a first, so I have a second. Second. I have a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I will not be the next one.
That is actually, that is the 1-year anniversary of that. Yes. September 15th at 7:04. So I will be here.
We're in a couple of paddocks.
I'm going to
We have them right outside.
All right, at this point, continuing on to new business, the only thing we have left is, this is going to be an interpretation request that a private 1 megawatt solar generator project is a transmission facility as categorized in section 23, permitted uses, pass it down, in the Naugatuck zoning land use regulations. Just passing down exactly, what that says right now. I think, Eddie, you're gonna fill us in a little bit more on this.
Well, the reason why we're looking for the interpretation is we are getting more and more requests, and you can see it around town, about solar panels being on individual houses, and we're now getting contacted that there are potential, lack of a better word, solar farms potentially looking. And you've seen in other towns, you've seen them, even state of Connecticut puts them some places, I've seen them on the exits. And what it's coming down to is we kind of don't have a regulation for, we don't have a regulation against. Most of these type of things do normally go before the Connecticut Siting Council. But in many of these smaller cases, or smaller projects, they're not large enough to go before the Connecticut Siting Council. So we have a couple coming up potentially in the future that are going to run into those situations. In those situations, an applicant can go before the Connecticut Siting Council for whatever size they want. Connecticut Siting Council has been very proactive and happy with these applications because they want green energy. So an applicant can choose not to come before us in a small case and go straight to the Siting Council, and we have no say whatsoever. So I think what they're asking, what the Siting Council is kind of trying to say is, why don't the town start looking at this a bit? So when these small, and most of these would be a 1 megawatt facility.
Or less.
Or less, 1 megawatt facility or less in size. We'll go into about size and what 1 megawatt generally is. 1 megawatt solar farm should produce enough power for 440 to 500 homes in the area. It might represent about 5 acres of land, give or take. Just, flat land, that type of thing. All right. So it's not that they're huge, but they're small enough. And again, an applicant can go straight before and just start thinking about our hills, our mountains. We've got a lot of area. This kind of things can happen. And we have one potentially might be coming before us for another, in an area in town here. And it makes sense. It's a flat piece of land. So we started trying to look, well, how is an area, or where can we do this? So in section 23, it refers to always public companies, public stuff. Well, these are private. It's kind of no different than what you see going on. We have it going on already now on people's houses. Quite honest. So this, what we're trying to interpret is that a project that is under 1 megawatt that doesn't necessarily need Connecticut Siting Council approval, that we could potentially take that in as a project here. And we would now have some say as to how the project would look. We can get a site plan because section 23 requires special permit or site plan. And many of these might be in some residential areas. When you start looking at the top of Andrew and Hunter's Mountain, they're all residential areas. I mean, it was a big uproar many years ago when they put a cell tower at the top. Town had no say. Siting Council did. So we're looking for that as, because it says transmission and communication towers. But this is a transmission of electricity. There's no noise. These aren't wind farms. These aren't, giant wind turbines. But these would just be solar panels. And so I'm looking for an interpretation that we could start to take these projects under this area here, which would allow us to go through a special permit process to now be able to take a look at what this would be. And again, it's for 1 megawatt or less, but they can't choose today to just skip us completely. But if we do this, it would give us the opportunity to say, no, you've got to come before us.
I know
It has happened in other towns. I can tell you right now, we know that for a fact, where towns were in the same situation as us, and they wanted these because these are green energy things. The towns can benefit from this. There's a program right now through Eversource that allows these projects that are private to then benefit through energy credits to town municipal buildings. All right? And so a case like Western School, where we're not able to put solar panels on the school, we can actually take a project, and if the project is part of this program with the state, which many of them are now, with these private solars, state would then give us credit towards the energy use of Western School. And we have the ability to change that off every year, that if we, like with Prospect Street School, we sold that off at one point. So it's not that it's every year you have the ability to change the municipal building that doesn't have solar or something connected with it already on these projects, or for these credits that would benefit the town.
So it's a private solar farm that,
Is part of the project, it is part of that Eversource program.
so the-
Selling energy back to the grid,
so they create the power. We sell that power to
to
Eversource.
Eversource,
Eversource then credits a portion of that power to the town.
Correct.
in dollar sense, not in that they take the actual.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, but
Yes.
fundamentally, they credit a portion of that.
Yes, and that's why they're trying to say, we'd like the towns to partner in on this, because we believe it's solar energy is good.
And if we couldn't use it for some reason in our area, you could use the surrounding towns like Middlebury, if Middlebury needed.
So say we had more than we were allowed to take for credits, we could allow our credits to be used to, like she said, Middlebury, Beacon Falls, Prospect, things like that. If we ran out of, there's only so much you can have, credit towards a building. And if we ran out of municipal buildings in some cases, we would be able to allocate some of ours to that.
Add to this, to give you an idea, we've talked about cell towers going up before and having a public hearing. We can't. If somebody decides they want to put a cell tower up, we can have a public hearing, we can sit there and tell them everything thing. Then we turn around and we go to the siting council, and we tell them, okay, this is what our people think, this is what they want, and they can choose to follow that for our request and use that information or totally ignore it. Once it goes to the siting council as a town, we actually have no control, really no say. We can say what we want, but they don't even have to listen to it.
Who's the siting council?
State of Connecticut.
State of Connecticut.
Oh.
State of Connecticut. So at this point, by somebody coming to us and say, gee, I want to do this, we do have a little bit of control over what they're doing.
Well, the way it looks, can we protect where it's bordering with certain type of plantings? Could we hide it so people aren't staring necessarily at solar panels? It would allow us that ability to go in and take a look at
The
this.
same as we do now with any other special permit.
Right.
What's to stop the individual that if they come before us and say, you know, I'd like to do this, we say, listen, we want something here, and I don't want to deal with you, I'm going to go to the state instead, and just totally bypass us anyway.
Well, I think because we have an avenue, I think the state would turn around and say, we'd rather you go through the avenue there.
So they would then push them back to us.
Push it back to us.
Because if they've seen that we've started to do it, it was a case in Bristol. Bristol basically wanted the project. They didn't have a way to approve it. So they told them, they said, go to the siting council. They'll approve it. But it also took Bristol out of any oversight.
State can still technically approve a project, but with us having it as part of our zoning laws, more likely return them back to us to say, no, you know, this, we'd rather. you
Well,
work
we
with
can
us."
at least say we have an avenue to look at this, whereas the state, the siting council has said, we only look at usually 2 megawatts or above. And in this case, this is under that, and since the town has been enacting those procedures, we'd like to say that.
So yes, the siting council. Would only prefer to hear the larger cases that are. So that's why they're trying to defer to local zoning authorities to handle 1 megawatt alone. That's, I mean, it does make sense. But Ed, I have a question. So if your recommendation is that we utilize that section in the transmission, entitled transmission and communications towers and interpret that to allow.
The
as
transmission of
Transmission
Of
It
energy.
also applies to, so we would have to, for purposes of handling on the document would look, we have to probably put an asterisk there and make sure it's known that it's subject to interpretation, right? That's what you're, or you're looking to change the right language. You're just gonna ask for the interpretation that it is meant to apply to
1 megawatt.
solar,
Not wind.
installation
I
of
think we
solar,
want to keep
solar,
it separate from wind.
installation of solar panels, not to exceed 1 megawatt in total. Is that the idea?
Yes.
So that, but the idea is to have it as an interpretation, so when somebody's going through the zoning regulations, if you're online person, there'll be an asterisk or something here to alert them,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Or an ordinary course will.
Which we have in other spots.
I know we do. I just want to make sure that's how we're going to do it. So that somebody who's coming here looking will be alerted to that.
And hopefully, maybe we could put the asterisk right underneath it.
So you could, because there's one right there.
It goes
I don't
into
know.
a different part,
Right.
right below that section. But I do know there's going to be others, because when we had this meeting with this, there was an attorney that said, I've already got another one that someone wants to do up on Hunters Mountain.
That's a big one, right? It's a bigger project.
I don't believe so.
So if they start out small, say they start out with 1 meg or less, and they add on later, they could come to us first, get the what we want, and then they have to go to the siting council if they expand it. Kind of like the cell towers with the tower sharing applications that have to go to the siting council.
So how much land that?
5 to 10 acres. 5 to 10.
About 5 acres.
5,
One?
but yeah, for one. They say 5 to 10 depending on the land, and they have to have a certain amount of space between them. They're basically similar to the look of a greenhouse.
So it's all pins.
It's just all panels. It looks like a greenhouse, no more than 10 feet in height typically. Solar farms are often enclosed by fencing or landscaping. So one side, you know what I mean, depending on the side, the south side has to get all the sun on it, and one side we could do
That's the right
landscaping.
direction, right? Angles.
So
What are
the
what are
noise
the
are
cons to it?
quiet. What's that?
What are the negatives?
Just
Their
a look,
noise?
just a look.
There really
No
is not
noise.
much for noise. Which
No.
So no buzzing
No.
or?
There
I
might
got
be,
solar, I just got
a
solar
humming.
installed on my house 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. The town just did an inspection today, and there's nothing.
They say it
They're
here
so
is
tiny
slight
and so thin today that from a visual aesthetics point of view, we only have it on the back of our house. When you come down the driveway, you still see the front normal, but it's
Again,
really not a big deal.
It's almost like going to every other house. You know, that you're seeing them everywhere.
You have on the south side of your house.
East and southeast.
East and southeast.
And I got the 12.7
So
kilowatt.
you're getting the morning and the afternoon sun, so. That's right. Early afternoon.
And that's why they look for high areas, you know, because there's no tree issue as much. Most of them are flat. Occasionally you'll get some that are going to be angles. You know, but I've seen them at exits of the highways where they're eliminating trees. Put these there because they're open.
There's a case like that going on in Hampton right now.
But you said some of the negatives. I guess some of the negatives could be is that a person can turn around and sell off their land
They ever built it.
and try and put houses there again,
It was in the back.
which may not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But still, it's, you know, we have these big parcels in some cases where people aren't farming like they used to by any means.
Well, this is a new form of farming.
I mean, green energy, it does help the town for future stuff. I mean, I was shocked that it was 440 to 500 houses.
So
You guys wanna go home?
as Bill just pointed out, you did approve a very, pretty large solar project years ago. Where the EMIC building is, the piece in the back. Again, on the acres.
They wanted 600 panels. It was
So
big.
it was approved.
Yeah.
You guys approved it.
They never-
I can't remember what section we did it, but it was approved. I don't know, 10 years ago.
Long time.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I do foresee it.
Not built though.
More
Not
and
built.
more. things I hear, a lot of storage units.
Mhm.
And now solar panels.
Is there a solar still in the high school?
Yes, there's solar on some of the buildings.
City Hill.
City Hill has solar, high school
Every
has
building should
solar.
have it. Maple Hill's got it.
I think Maple Hill's getting it.
Every building should have it.
But again, buildings, you're limited to the size of the building. To do, these areas are gonna be.
Place on Elm Street, one of the buildings on Elm Street across from, Naugatuck Event Center.
But again, the ones on buildings are only so much, size.
You're limited. My daughter just by her side, luckily where she is, she has on the front and back. And her garage.
Now, I will, I don't know if I should say this for this, I do know this, for the project that might be coming soon. One of the things we found out is that the state recently, or through the courts, that also affects people who have solar on their houses. That's been deemed as non-taxable personal property.
But they're gonna,
They're looking at-
negotiate up front to give us a, fee in lieu of taxes.
But we can't guarantee that, but the company that was interested in the project that wants to come before us has already stated that we don't want to skip away from property tax. We understand that. We're willing to pay a fee, and we will negotiate that in. And we will pay at 47 mils. That is not. But the other ruling affects all the people that have solar panels on their houses, because we turned around and built the solar companies who own it. But now I guess it's been ruled that they're not taxable because they're solar. Like water is not taxable.
Not quite,
But
not quite that answer, but there's
there is
a
that
lot, there's
thought out there.
there's significant litigation, Naugatuck is part of that case. And it has not yet been decided, but the legislature is active and said they agree that they should be, if you put solar panels to your house, you should have to pay. It's a tax-free installation, but also energy companies, the solar installers don't have to pay personal property tax. You lease them. I don't know if you lease them. You can lease them, right? So the town wants to tax them because they make money. It's like anything else. So.
But in this case, this company that's looking at this
Yeah.
said, we're not looking, we're willing to pay tax.
Well, it's different when there's no argument when it's on a flat piece of land, it's not attached to a residence. The question is when it's attached to a residence, there's a specific exemption, statutory
Well, that's
exemption.
not what their attorney told us. Their attorney said they were ruled as non-taxable
Not attached to the house or to
to the land.
okay, but I haven't seen that decision because the real one that's in court right now is the house. It does is it exempt?
Isn't that what was
that it?
I don't- Which one?
that the attorney, Paul, that was there? He said how they were not taxable, but that's why he specifically pointed out, we are willing to pay tax.
So it's a class 4, is it a class 4 energy use? Is that what?
He didn't say.
He didn't go into that, but he said we were
It's in the
willing to
statute.
That's all
pay.
he does is
There's
work
a
on
set
it.
of exemptions. And it's a question of what applies.
And even Gary Hale, who works with the borough in regard to energy sources, was there. And he said it's a win-win for the town because we'll get tax money and we'll get credits.
So are you planning to, you want to have an interpretation in connection with that section? Do you think that fits with the special permits all the way across the board, with the exception of the RSC zone?
Which we don't have.
Just down here. You don't even have RSC.
We don't have RSC, but it's our shopping center, we don't have a zone.
And don't forget, it has to be on at least 5 acres, so it's not gonna be in your neighbor's yard. It's 5 to 10
Well,
acres.
well, wait, but what if it's smaller? Are you saying it has to be minimum of 5? What are you saying?
Well, again, we have discretion. We just got
Okay,
that
so
shot.
are we
no,
gonna
not
just
there.
so you're saying one solar panel on the ground?
I'm just
even
asking
if
what
ground
you're-
mounted.
How are you trying to interpret this section?
then it falls under the regulation to allow us to have a special permit. Under the special permit, we have discretion as to whether or not it fits in the neighborhood.
Right, but I don't think you can determine what the size,
Gotcha.
minimum size of the parcel is, except,
No, that's
We're
just a
not.
minimal.
okay, I mean, that would be required if it was a 1 megawatt. At least
Yeah.
that, but, okay, that wouldn't be in the language.
No, it's not.
Contained in the language of the interpretation.
No, it's not.
Right, I just wanna make sure I understand
Just the size,
where you're going.
the amount of megawatts.
Well, under 1, because over 1, as you said,
Yeah,
over
that's-
1, it's citing council has jurisdiction and
Right,
we can't affect that anyway.
exactly.
So we're gonna tag it here, but we're not gonna have an explanation in the regs. We're gonna just tag it, if it comes up, we hear.
We will put it, the same thing we did in the Haven Road Design District, which allowed the a building, with an asterisk that you could have, I can't remember, a 10,000 square foot building, you could have 2 buildings, you could have the residential on its side, doesn't have to be above it.
That's for this property.
Like what we did earlier, yeah, that's asterisk right there.
The combination of residential and commercial, that the commercial didn't have to be on the first floor as long as it was on the same.
As long as a
Property,
certain
or
amount of
It's on the
building.
same parcel,
That's
this
how-
is on
that's
one
how we-
side and the residential is on
That's
the
how
other.
we sort
With
of,
connectivity, had to have sidewalks or
it was
something
connectivity had
connected.
to be connected, right? We put connectivity in that. That's right.
So we put it as a note.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah, so,
And this is 1 or less. Over 1 has to go to the site. council.
right.
But we could put a note in there, 1 or less. Megawatt.
Yeah, so it includes the use of property as a solar, for solar energy purposes, consisting of transmission devices capable of generating not more than 1 megawatt. Wow. Is that where we kind of want to say?
Yeah, well, basically, the way we had it written, that was to approve the interpretation that a solar panel project that is privately owned and under 1 megawatt in size and not requiring formal Connecticut siting council application is to be considered as transmitting power such as transmission or communication towers as categorized in section 23 permitted uses of the Naugatuck zoning regulations.
Okay, so you, even though it's not literally a tower, it's the interpretation that apply.
We don't have-
Tower can be horizontal or vertical.
Section 23 was written before.
Yeah.
Solar was really around.
I guess.
So we're interpreting that a tower can go this way.
Horizontal
It's
tower.
transmitting power.
No, I understand, I'm just having fun at the word tower. When I think of tower.
Any other questions, comments? And at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the interpretation that solar panel project that is privately owned and under 1 megawatt in size and not requiring a formal Connecticut siting council application is to be considered as transmitting power, such as transmission or communication towers as categorized in section 23 permitted uses in the Naugatuck zoning regulations. Applicant, the Borough of Naugatuck.
So moved.
First, do I have a second? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Continuing along. Chairman report, commissioners' comments. Personally, I would just like to thank you all for the past 5 months. We've been extremely busy. I think we ought to get used to it. I think we're going to see an awful lot going on in the very near future, and I thank you all.
Robin?
Yes.
Question, I don't know if this is gonna ask another zoning. Do we have any plans for marijuana dispensary zoning? and things
Hasn't
like
been
that?
brought up at all yet.
If those businesses gain popularity, especially with the changes, I've heard a lot of towns, starting to decide what's allowed to be used outdoors in public areas, what buildings are allowed to be used, what's the, different, the distance, from a school to this and yada yada. I wasn't sure what our plans are.
We don't have any as of yet. That's something we probably should start looking at in the very near future.
We have
I
done
have
it
a-
before on other type of things.
I've acquired some legislative summaries. I have the actual bill, it's 400 something pages. But the-
23
I have a what is
or
it?
300.
That's on the print. I have a legislative summary too. There's some helpful information I'll share with staff.
We have,
You have the
we have that from,
Legislative
Valley
Commissioner's
Council.
Office.
His is 100, he has a large print version, he's old.
That's right. But I'm entitled, you're saying, I'm entitled.
Could you share it with us?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a, look, I'll contact you to see if you have the same one I have. I have it from the LCO, Legislative Commission this summer.
And does it provide any type of guidance or
It
suggestions?
just, it tells you what it says in it, and it tells you how, what your limitations are, and what the towns can do. You know, there's one, for example, for every 50,000, so there'd be one in Naugatuck. One or two.
Because we're 25,000, up to 25,000, you should have one, but we're over
I know, but can you
25,000.
have another, I wasn't,
Yeah, two.
are you sure about that?
I was at a meeting
This
and
is
they
what we're-
said two.
No, but that's the question.
Yeah,
Whether or not
and
there were
also
two,
the
because
micro.
we
So
would
much,
be 50.
so up to 25,000, you have one, 25,000 and
They
one, you
round
get two.
up, yeah.
That's why I'm not sure that's the
Okay,
way.
I'll look in my thing, but that's
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
brought up in the meeting, it's one of those casual meetings.
Neil, anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Anything else, AJ?
No,
Good job,
Eileen?
everybody.
River Avenue and the monthly report on what's going on there?
Yeah, I talked with Tim actually yesterday. He is, he's removing some dirt from there, which he's allowed to based on what we spoke with Wayne Zorley and I spoke with his David Hughes down there. What he's doing right now is starting on the fencing first. I said, you've got to get the fencing done around it. So that's his first goal, is the fencing and planting the trees. I did have a discussion with him. We did approve up to an 8-foot fence. I don't know if he's gonna do 6 foot with then some barbed wire across the top, which was what was there before. I do know, because I did see it, it was people throwing stuff over at the top, so he's trying to prevent that again. So I'm gonna work, but he does plan on putting a nice, he's not gonna do it silly, or he's gonna talk to me about it. Also finding stuff right now, the fencing is a little difficult. He's gonna order it from Arizona, but, so he's getting that part done, digging that out. He's gonna get the fencing, the arborvitae's in, and then, we'll be going from there. Again, the first thing we told him, we gotta get the bank solidified and get the landscaping done all there.
How much
Hey,
longer-
Can you put that on your regular monthly report?
Yeah.
So I can forget.
how much longer before he gets his paint box?
He's gotta get everything else done
Gotta
first.
get everything
Got to get all done
else
before, okay, that's what I thought, okay, thank you.
He's gotta go through all that first. That's just gone over with him every time I talk.
You know what? You have nothing else to add? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second? Thank you. It's now 7:55.